Good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Bible class with Andre and Betty, and thank you for visiting with us. We're continuing our studies from the book of 2 Samuel, and we're in chapter 19. We'll be looking at the subject, Joab confronts King David. That means after Absalom had been killed in battle, and Joab is David's general over his army, and David is so upset in chapter 18 about Absalom being killed that Joab took offense, the general, against the king, and he confronts King David. Verse 1, we're in chapter 9, 2 Samuel, chapter 19. Verse 1, and it was told Joab, behold, the king weepeth and mourneth for Absalom. Verse 2. And the victory that day was turned into mourning unto the people. For the people heard say that day how the king was grieved for his son. So they had won the victory, but they felt grief rather than triumph. And so verse 3 says, and the people got them by stealth, by stealing away that day into the city, as people being ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. They act like they were the ones who lost the battles, but in fact, Joab and the men under David won the battle. But they were embarrassed because what they had won also brought about the death of David's son Absalom. Verse 4. But the king covered his face, and the king cried with a loud voice, O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son. Verse 5, and Joab came into the house to the king and said, this is when he confronts the king. He's saying this to the king, thou hast shamed this day the faces of all thy servants, which this day have saved thy life, and the lives of thy sons and of thy daughters, and the lives of thy wives, and the lives of your concubines. And so he's saying it's shameful what you're doing here. Verse 6. In that, by the way you're conducting yourself, king, in that thou lovest thine enemies and hatest thy friends. For thou hast declared this day that you regardest neither princes nor servants. For this day I perceive that if Absalom had lived and all we had died this day, then it had pleased thee well. But he says to him in verse 7, now therefore arise, go forth, and speak comfortably unto thy servants. For I swear by the Lord, if thou go not forth, there will not tarry one with thee this night. And that will be worse unto thee than all the evil that befell thee from thy youth up until now. And after that, verse 8, then the king arose and sat in the gate. That was the place of royalty. And they told unto all the people, saying, behold, the king doth sit in the gate. And all the people came before the king, for Israel had fled every man to his tent. That's those following Absalom. Now David is going to return to Jerusalem because he had fled out of the land when he heard that Absalom, his third son, was going to usurp authority over him. So verse 9 says, and all the people were at strife throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, the king saved us out of the hand of our enemies, and he delivered us out of the hand of the Philistines. And now he is fled out of the land for Absalom. Verse 10. And Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore, why speak ye not a word of bringing the king back? So this is those of Israel that now want to get David back into Jerusalem. Verse 11. And King David sent to Zadok and to Abiathar the priest, saying, speak unto the elders of Judah, saying, why are you the last to bring the king back to his house, seeing the speech of all Israel is come to the king, even to his house? So this is a separation between Israel that followed Absalom and Judah that followed David. Verse 12. Ye are my brethren, David speaking to Judah. Ye are my brethren. Ye are my bones and my flesh. Wherefore then are ye the last to bring back the king? So he's scolding Judah for not being the first to bring him back to Jerusalem. Verse 13. And say ye to Amasa, art thou not of my bone and of my flesh? That means we're biologically related. We're kinfolk. That when he talks about my bone and my flesh. And David says, God do so to me and more also, if thou or you be not captain of the host before me continually in the room of Joab. So David is letting Amasa, who is Joab's cousin, know that he's going to use him to replace Joab. And this story, this drama goes into a lot of detail about Joab's response and what he did in trying to maintain his position as general over the nation of Israel. Verse 14. And he bowed the heart of all the men of Judah. When David got through speaking, then it touched the hearts of Judah, even as the heart of one man, so that they sent this word unto the king, return thou and all thy servants. Verse 15. So the king returned and came to Jordan. And Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan. Remember, the Jordan River separates the east side from the west side. Verse 16. And Shimei, the son of Geror, this is verse 16, and Shimei, the son of Geror, a Benjamite, which was of Bahurim, hurried, and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. And this is the man that cursed King David as they were going to battle. Verse 17. And there were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him. These are descendants of King Saul. And Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and his 20 servants with him. And they went over Jordan before the king. Verse 18. And there went over a ferry boat to carry over the king's household and to do what he thought good. And Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down before the king, and as he was come over Jordan, verse 19, and said unto the king, let not my lord impute iniquity unto me, neither do thou remember that which thy servant did perversely the day that my lord the king went out of Jerusalem, that the king should take it to heart. Don't punish me for what I did in cursing you. Verse 20, for thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Therefore, behold, I am come the first this day of all the house of Joseph to go down to meet my lord the king. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? Verse 22. And David said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah, that ye should this day be adversaries unto me? Shall there any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king over Israel? Verse 23. Therefore the king said unto Shimei, thou shalt not die. And the king sware unto him. So this is going to play out in the days of Solomon. And this man, because he's not going to follow instructions, he's gonna die. But David said he will die, but not by my hands. Verse 24. And Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king, and had neither dressed his feet, nor trimmed his beard, nor washed his clothes, from the day the king departed until the day he came again in peace. So this was a long time to not have shaven or taken a bath or changed your clothes. But this was Mephibosheth's mourning, because King David had been run out of Jerusalem. Verse 25. And it came to pass, when he was come to Jerusalem to meet the king, that the king said unto him, wherefore wentest not thou with me, Mephibosheth? Verse 26. And he answered, my lord, O king, my servant deceived me. This was back in, I think, chapter 15. My servant deceived me, for thy servant said, I will saddle me an ass, that I may ride thereon, and go to the king, because thy servant is lame. And he was lame on both his feet. Verse 27. And Mephibosheth continues with talking to David. And he said, and he had slandered thy servant unto my lord the king. But my lord the king is as an angel of God. Do therefore what is good in thine eyes. So this son of Jonathan is saying to King David that I wanted to come with you, but because I'm lame of feet, I could not come. Verse 28, for all of my father's house were but dead men, because my Lord, before my Lord the king. Yet didst thou set thy servant among them that did eat at thine own table. What right, therefore, have I yet to cry any more unto the king? So even though my servant slandered me before you, I have no right to ask of you any more than you've already done. Verse 29. And the king said unto him, why speakest thou any more of thy matters? I have said, thou and Ziba divide the land. Verse 30. And Mephibosheth said unto the king, yea, let him take all. Just give it all to him. For as much as my lord the king is come again in peace unto his own home. Verse 31. And Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rogelim and went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over Jordan. And this is a parenthetical verse 32, an explanation about Barzillai. Now, Barzillai was a very aged man, even 80 years old, and he had provided the king of sustenance while he lay at Mahanaim, and for he was a very great man. And this happened in chapter 17, where several men brought David and his people food and supplies because he knew that they was fighting in a war against David's son. So Barzillai is just trying to comfort David and let him get back to Jerusalem. Verse 33. And the king said unto Barzillai, Come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem. And Barzillai said unto the king, How long have I to live, that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem? I am this day, verse 35, I am this day 80 years old or 80 years old. And can I discern between good and evil? Can thy servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women? Wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto my lord the king? So he's petitioning David to let him stay in his own land, and so that he would not be a burden to King David. Verse 36. Thy servant will go a little, this is Barzillai speaking, thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king. And why should the king recompense or pay me with such a war? Why should you reward me by taking me over with you? He says in verse 37, Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I may die in my own city and be buried by the grave of my father and of my mother. But behold, thy servant Shimham, which is one of his descendants, Barzillai's descendants, of Shimham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. And the king answered, Shimham shall go over with me, and I will do to him that which seem good unto thee. And whatsoever thou shalt require of me, that will I do for thee. So Barzillai say, do whatever you think is right. David responds, no, I'm going to do to him what you think is right. So verse 39, and all the people went over Jordan. And when the king was come over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned unto his own place. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Shimham, this is Barzillai's descendant, Shimham went on with him. And all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. Now it's going to be a battle of words between the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes. That is Israel and Judah. Verse 41. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said unto the king, Why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen thee away, and have brought the king and his household, and all David's men with him over Jordan? Why have they done this? Verse 42. And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, because the king is near of kin to us. For this reason, or wherefore then be ye angry for this matter? Have we eaten of all the king at all at the king's cost? Or hath he given us any gift? Verse 43, and the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, we have 10 parts in the king, and we have also more right in David than you. Why then did ye not despise us, that our advice should not be first had in bringing back the king? So they think because there are 10 versus Judah and Benjamin in the southern kingdom, that they have more, they're more related to David than Judah is. And so they're talking amongst themselves, fussing on who has this right and who does not. And the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. So Judah won the argument, and they justified themselves in being first to bring King David back after he had run from his son Absalom, when Absalom was trying to overthrow David's kingdom and become king himself. So this is going to get more and more interesting as we go along, but I appreciate you all for listening and viewing with us. You all have a great day and a great week, and we'll see you next time.